$4.8 billion. That is what Instructure was valued at when it changed hands in 2024. The platform ran across roughly 9,000 education organizations, a scale built entirely on institutional trust. How did that trust become the attack surface? In early May 2026, ShinyHunters accessed Canvas systems through a low-friction account path, extracting data from connected databases at reported scale. Instructure disclosed unauthorized access, reached an agreement with the actor, and stated the data was returned, with digital confirmation of destruction provided. The payment amount was never disclosed. A House Homeland Security Committee investigation followed. What made this consequential was not the breach itself. It was the concentration. One compromised boundary, one shared platform, one simultaneous extortion window touching thousands of institutions during finals week. A $4.8 billion company's trust architecture, working at scale and failing at scale through the same mechanism. Trust in Canvas is not accidental, it is engineered over a long operating arc. Instructure is founded in 2008, goes public in 2015, shifts private ownership in 2020, and is sold again in 2024 for about $4.8 billion. Across that expansion, institutions adopt a shared expectation. The platform stays available, course delivery stays standardized, and campus teams offload significant security and maintenance burden to the vendor. That bargain is rational. A centralized learning system reduces local complexity, improves administrative consistency, and lets schools run instruction without rebuilding core tooling each term. Dependence grows because the service works, and because fragmented alternatives create operational drag, few institutions can absorb at scale. But the same architecture that builds confidence also concentrates risk. When thousands of tenants run on one multi-tenant control plane, one weak trust boundary can become a force multiplier for attackers. Reporting around this incident focuses on the free-for-teacher account path as that boundary, a low-friction onboarding surface connected to an ecosystem widely treated as institutional grade. If an actor can abuse legitimate access patterns there, then move inward, the problem is no longer a single account compromise. It becomes perimeter failure with potential lateral movement across shared infrastructure, followed by data access, extortion pressure, and system-wide disruption affecting ranges from more than 8,000 to about 9,000 institutions. That is why this chapter matters. Adoption did not fail because schools were careless. It created attack economics, where one intrusion could pressure an entire sector at once. And the attackers were still testing how far that leverage could go. Before the public extortion phase, Canvas is operating as critical infrastructure for instruction, embedded in assignment flow, grading cadence, and daily communication across thousands of schools. That scale creates resilience in normal conditions, but it also creates a single pressure point when identity and access controls are stressed. The warning sequence is now clear. A first confirmed breach is reported in September 2025, LinkedIn reporting to Salesforce Social Engineering. A later confirmed breach appears in April 2026, tied by the company to a production system vulnerability that it says is patched. By May 2026, incident disclosures expand while investigation remains active, signaling that scope, pathing, and downstream exposure are still being resolved. The pattern is the risk indicator. 2 confirmed incidents in a short span suggest repeated pressure against trust boundaries, not a random outage. At this stage, the safest technical conclusion is high level. Adversaries appear to abuse account and access pathways, then seek broader control through privilege expansion opportunities inside a shared environment. No procedural detail is needed to see the implication. In a multi-tenant platform serving roughly 9,000 institutions, perimeter weakness does not stay local. It propagates operational consequences across campuses that depend on one vendor control plane. That is why this chapter is called Scale Before Failure. Institutional confidence and platform concentration grow together, and so does blast radius when controls are bypassed. The unresolved issue is no longer whether disruption happened, but where containment logic broke between first warning and second compromise. 2 incidents in quick succession raise one hard question. Where exactly did perimeter control fail this time? April 29, 2026 is where the story turns. Unauthorized activity is detected, and an anomaly becomes a confirmed perimeter failure. Reporting ties the opening to FFT-related trust boundaries inside a multi-tenant environment, where low-friction account access appears to have brushed up against production exposure. The technical chain, at the safest high level, is stark. Boundary bypass, possible privilege gain, broader data access, then exfiltration pressure. By early May 2026, the extortion is public. Stealth is over. The goal is no longer quiet persistence, but coercion under a deadline. Then the pressure becomes visible. Reports around May 7th reference login page defacement at institutions, less a technical flourish than a message. We're inside, and we want you to feel it. Even without a full public forensic record, that marks a clear shift, from hidden intrusion to platform-wide intimidation. Instructure's exposure statement is specific: names, email addresses, student IDs, and Canvas inbox or discussion messages. Just as important are the exclusions it states at that point. No evidence of exposed passwords, financial data, government identification data, or dates of birth. That exposure matters. The breach of private messages, names, emails, and student IDs shapes triage, disclosure, and institutional response across roughly 9,000 dependent schools. This is how the trust model breaks in real life. Routine school operations become bargaining collateral. A system built to move assignments, messages, and identity through one shared pipe now has that same pipe turned against it. Containment can limit technical spread, but it cannot by itself solve liability, disclosure timing, or negotiation risk. And that is the gut punch. By now, the breach is no longer just a security event. It is a governance crisis with classrooms attached to it. The firewall problem is becoming a boardroom problem. But the hardest decision is still ahead. The immediate crisis eases, but certainty does not return. Instructure reports an agreement with the unauthorized actor. Stolen data is returned. Digital destruction confirmation is provided through what it describes as shred logs, and the actor gives assurances that customer institutions will not face separate extortion contact. External reporting says a ransom is paid, yet the monetary amount is not publicly disclosed. That gap matters. A negotiated handoff can reduce near-term leak pressure, but it cannot independently verify that no duplicate copy remains outside the declared destruction path. In incident response terms, the organization moves from active coercion to conditional trust, where legal exposure and reputational risk remain probabilistic rather than closed. The downstream cost is operational and institutional. During a critical academic period, disruption spreads across a platform used by roughly 9,000 institutions, with impacts including dozens of Dutch schools and universities, and official vigilance advisories from Dutch authorities. At the governance layer, customer expectations shift. Uptime is no longer the only benchmark. Breach decision discipline becomes part of product credibility. Boards and campus leadership now evaluate not just patch cadence, but also who negotiates, who validates claims, and who owns residual risk after a payment-linked resolution. Oversight pressure escalates beyond technical remediation when the House Homeland Security Committee announces an investigation after payment confirmation. That signal is clear. Vendor-mediated extortion decisions are now policy issues, not only security operations issues. The breach may be contained for now, but the control question is still open. If payment lowers immediate danger without proving future safety, what must security leaders redesign before the next extortion clock starts? Canvas exposed a hard truth. The defense framework after a breach is not a patch list. It is an operating model. A checklist can close a ticket. It cannot close a blind spot. Start by mapping normal operations across identity, tenant provisioning, messaging, and data flows. Then harden the places where trust is thinnest, especially free or self-serve entry points. Next, choke off lateral movement by shrinking standing privileges and tightening institutional verification. Assume access can still happen, so prioritize exfiltration detection and fast containment triggers. And plan the fallout before it arrives. Legal coordination, customer notice sequencing, and clear executive decision rights when an extortion deadline is on the clock. The reported response fits that chain: FFT shutdown, prudential rotation, forensic investigation, and law enforcement engagement. But this case leaves a deeper policy warning. A settlement may reduce the immediate risk of publication, but it does not erase residual exposure risk. Instructure reports return data and confirmation of destruction, yet governance still has to treat uncertainty as live, especially because this was the second confirmed breach in about 8 months. That is not bad luck, that is a stress test of the system. Controls are not installed once and admired forever. They are tested, repeatedly, by adversaries who keep changing the angle of attack. For SaaS governance, the lesson is direct. Isolate low-friction tiers from production trust paths. Rotate tokens and keys fast. Predefine negotiation policy, and publish customer-facing exposure matrices with explicit confidence levels as facts evolve. In an ecosystem serving roughly 9,000 institutions, vendor security becomes part of every customer's risk register, not a private back-office problem. When one platform becomes the campus backbone, its weaknesses scale like the product itself. If your institution's core platform faced the same extortion deadline tomorrow, would your decision framework already be written, or would you be drafting it under pressure?